Roberta. Hi, John.
Hi,
Hi,
how you doing?
Alan.
South End.
How are you guys doing today?
Wonderful.
We got up, we got here.
We got here.
Yeah, that's the best part.
And we got some fish on the way.
That's right. We went to the Alioga fish place and got some nice salmon.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Roberta, John, state your name. How long you been with South End?
I'm Roberta, guys. I joined the South End Rowing Club in August of 1986.
Whoa.
And I'm John Rahosky, and I joined in '84, so almost 40 years down at the club.
Okay.
And it's been wonderful. And this is where I met this one, Roberta.
Okay.
Right here on this beach.
Whoa.
And she'll tell you the rest of the story.
I want to hear the love story then.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was already in a relationship, right? Wasn't too happy. I had joined the club, been here a year and a half, came down to what was a bigger deck here at the time. It was actually a sunning deck, and we had deck chairs. I sat here and pulled out my book to read. John was over there. Now, I've made a decision when I came to this club. Remember, I wasn't in a great relationship. Stick to your lane. No fraternizing, no romances, nothing, okay? So I'm sitting here, John's over there, and I feel his eyes. I mean, you know how you can just feel when somebody's eyes are penetrating you? Anyway,
True.
I looked over, he looked at me, and we started the conversation. Chatting, chatting, chatting. I'm getting interested. He's getting interested. I said to him, hey, John, that was your name, right? John, why don't you show me your stroke? So off we went to the beach.
Showing her my stroke.
John got in the water and showed me his stroke. I fully expected him to just swim around and come back. He didn't. He swam off. Now remember, this was August. I didn't see him until about November, a few months later. That was at the old gym 2 remodels ago.
What year was that?
This was 1987.
87. There's no texting or there's no
None of that.
There's no texting, there's no cell phones, there's nothing.
And I kept asking around the club, has anybody seen Roberta? And
Well,
they
you're,
said,
you're skipping one detail.
Yeah.
A detail.
Which Roberta?
Well, before that, he was in the gym, and we had a conversation in the doorway to this old gym, which was down here. There was a little hole in the wall. We chatted about his divorce and divorced parents, etc., etc. Hey, why don't we go get a cup of coffee? See you in half an hour. He knew my name was Roberta. I knew his name was John. Half an hour later, I come down. Where's John? Where's John? Couldn't find him. I asked around. Yeah, no cell phones. I said, have you seen John? Have you seen John? And somebody said to me, a smart ass club member said, hey, lady, you know how many Johns, the contractor there are? I knew he was a contractor. He's actually an architect. But do you know how many people named John, the contractor, there are down here? All right, so that was about November. Fast forward to 1988, New Year's Day. We had the joint club swims. The dolphin clubs were doing breakfast. I brought a friend down here, thinking, you know, she might be interested in seeing some swimmers. I saw him across the room with Bob Jochnowitz, and I called across the room and said, hey, you stood me up. You tell the story from there.
True story. Yeah, so we lost each other in the class war in weird rooms, and it was easy to get lost. So we lost each other for 6 months, but we did connect on that New Year's Day. And,
so we did connect. And now we had to have a clandestine relationship where nobody would know about it. So how did we do it? We did it a couple of ways. One was at the blackboard in the front. When John was here, he'd write hawk. When I was here, I'd write dove. And then at some point after that, we developed calls, because sometimes I think we forgot to write it down on the blackboard, or we just decided we'd start to use a vocal. So, John, what was the call that you started using to let me know that you were in the club?
a rebel yell.
And I developed a call that I would say was supposed to be like a gull, but he thinks is a broken seal.
A wounded seal.
A wounded seal.
How many years have you been doing that?
Since then.
34 years, 35
right,
years.
We got married on our 13th anniversary. I got moved out of the way of the other relationship. We got married on our 13th anniversary, and here we are. So my history with the club is this. When I came down, I was almost completely disabled with a back injury, and that's never gone away. And it's always been a struggle for me. I'm not a fast swimmer. Actually, I'm a very slow swimmer. I'm one of the DFLs. Back in those days, with fins, I'd be in the middle of the pack. These days, even with fins, I'm still a straggler whenever I do events. I believe I was on the first locker room when I came to the club in 1986. And in the early 90s, Bert Huffman and I set out, along with the board's permission, because this is what they wanted, to try to get more visibility for the club, because if you can believe it, we had dropped. Club numbers were hovering around 400, and we were in danger of losing our lease. So I'm in marketing, and I was at the time doing marketing and PR. So we decided to try to get some of the numbers up. And then I think it was with Pedro, with the swims in his water world, that the club visibility started increasing. But what you may not know about me, I'm a personal brander, and I do publicity. I used to do publicity. I help clients become known. And so I've always done, if you've ever seen any media for Alcatraz, New Year's Day Alcatraz swims, that's been my work. I've been sort of doing it behind the scenes since the early 90s, and I get it done most years. And one year, when the swim was canceled, I got the only reporter from the Chronicle to come down. It was flooding or floods all over the place back in the 90s. They came down and did some video, did a story on the swim that didn't happen.
Oh, yes.
But what I want to say about how the club has changed over the years, I absolutely love it, because when I joined, it seemed like we were just a bunch of eccentric folks. And now I laugh and say, oh my God, we have some normal people here now who have day jobs, and they're just these wonderful swimmers.
Yeah, and excuse me, it was mostly cops and firemen and city workers back in the day. And I have this picture. Back in the 80s and 90s, there was a group called the Sunrisers, which is still going on. And I used to fill up my old pickup truck with swimmers and kayaks and go down to Yacht Harbor or Pier 39, jump in the water and swim back with the tide. And, that's part of the history.
Well, look at the size of the Sunriser group then, right? Bobby Roper's group, and now what Sunrisers has become. But what I really wanted to emphasize is that we have these amazing swimmers like Kim Chambers and Sarah Roberts, and forgive me for all the other names. I mean, just people who stay in the water for hours and do amazing feats, and yet they're in the locker room. The humility that comes across and accepts people like me who just sort of poke around in the water and do my swims as best I can. And they say, hey, you got in, didn't you? That's the great thing. And that's the most beautiful thing about this place, is the acceptance of anybody wherever they're at in their lives. And for that, I mean, I'm just so grateful. And yeah. The last thing I just want to say is, I'm so I'll get this in a second. I'm so enamored with the club is that I've used cold water swimming as the metaphor for my business, where I tell people, that it hurts like heck the first time you dip your toe in, but each time you dip it in, it gets a little bit easier. And that's how it is when you shape your reputation. It hurts at first to start putting your name out there, but the cold water, you just get used to it, and then it just becomes part of your soul. Yes. And part of who you are.
Yes. The group just went by with wetsuits, and we didn't have wetsuits in those days.
That's right. There were no swim wetsuits in those days.
Roberta, show me the picture that you guys met for the first time or a long time ago.
This is one of them.
Yep. John's cousin took
Eileen,
this picture. Yeah, this is the middle of summer.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That was before the construction of the club there.
long before the construction of the club. Yes, this is the old boathouse, right?
Wow. Two lovebirds.
That's us.
Give me the call gang.
Cold water romance. Want the call?
Yes. Give me the call sign. The call sign.
Woo-hoo!
And
Sounds like a dying seal to me.
okay. Happy swimming. Happy 150.
Thank you. Happy 150, SERC.
Yeah, you got
Thank
it.
you.
Woohoo! One more time! Woohoo!